All right, hello, Metal Maniacs. It's the Meista from Brews and Tunes. Cheers. Absolutely thrilled tonight. I am chatting with the one and only progressive heavy metal band Category 5. Very excited to be chatting with you guys. I'll do like a quick little intro around the room. I'll just go from how I'm seeing you from left to right. So I've got on vocals, I've got Al Rybka, got Dan Coxey on guitars. I've got Matt Suter on drums, and of
Good,
course Dustin Mitchell on bass. How you doing, guys?
good.
Excellent.
Great to see you. Great to see you. So I think, first and foremost, the most exciting news that happening right now, as you've just told me before we started the interview, is that you are recording new material, correct?
Correct.
That's very exciting, especially considering that the band broke up in 2015
Yeah.
and now you're back,
Yes.
which is awesome, which is fucking great. Because yeah, for those of you watching, if you're not familiar with Category 5, get familiar with Category 5, especially if you love progressive metal. What a phenomenal band. Yeah, I've been digging you guys for a long time, and yeah, the re-release of your last album,
Mhm.
just recently, I guess in October,
Yep. Yeah, it was in
or
October.
around October. That yeah, very exciting. I don't know if it was remastered or just repackaged, I guess
It
maybe.
just repackaged, and it was just in physical format, but we had two bonus tracks that were recorded during those sessions that were thrown on. Those are mastered up to match with the rest of the album, basically. But
Okay.
it was mixed and mastered by Dennis Ward, who was in Peak Cream 69 and just recently Magnum.
Oh, okay, cool. So of course that's Resurrect the Insurrection, um, or Insurgents, not
Yeah.
Insurrection, the Insurgents. Sorry, thinking of the song. So that came out in 2015
Yes.
originally, correct?
Originally,
And
yes.
then jump forward, 8 years, almost 9 years, and new album. And what was really exciting about that is not only was the album released, you guys played a show,
Yes. Which
which
we
you
didn't
had
think we
not
were going to
done.
actually do.
Yeah, okay, yeah, which you hadn't done for nearly 10 years
Oh,
as well.
yeah, easily. I think would at least with this lineup.
That was
Uh,
the first show in 13 years for
yeah,
Category 5,
yeah,
Oh
and
wow.
the first show in 15 years for
him.
the three original members that are still in the
Yes,
band.
yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's exciting. That's really cool. What so I guess the big question is what prompted that? What made you guys decide to do this again?
It was a long stemming thing. It kind of starts with him because
With
him
Dan?
and Curtis were getting together and writing songs for a project they wanted to do.
Oh, nice.
That was they were going to bring in separate musicians based around what the song's requirements were. More thrashy songs, thrash vocals. Somebody that's a little more, progressive metal, more clean vocals. And they wanted to. They're just throwing things together. They've been jamming for quite a few years, um, and they ended up dragging me out of retirement to play on one song. And I said, sure. Matt had been. They pulled Matt out of retirement too. First, he was first, and then they pulled me out I'd say about 2 years later, and I came in to do a song that was kind of like in the style of like Fate's Warning,
Nice.
and they says, yeah, Dustin will know how to do it because of playing with it sounds like Category 5 material basically, so he'll know how to lock in with Matt. So they showed me the riffs and the song, and I locked it. I think what three songs through, three times through, we're ready to go. Let's
Right.
track it. And then they said, while you're here, you try this other song we've got. And it says, oh, okay. And it was a straight up kind of Bay Area thrasher. And I was like, all right. I played it along with them, and we'll come back next time. Let's try it again. And then I, like a lost dog that kept putting the food out on the table, and said, he'll come back here. And I would go back and be like, okay. Oh, yeah. So I ended up kind of coming in, and then all of a sudden it was decided that let's just not switch bass players and singers and people out. We'll just all do it, and we'll just switch out singers. All right, cool. I'm on board. So I jumped on it, and we got about 4 songs in, and uh, I don't remember what was the suggestion, Dan, that we just have somebody try vocals, but it came up that we were going to try out other singers, but. Let's try a song that was someone that we know we would just bring in. you know, that's familiar, and we can just, hey, just give it a shot. And I think Albert's name came up, and we're like, all right. So I sent him the songs. He learned it, sent back some scratch tracks, and Dan blew his wad and was like, this is the guy.
Nice.
You should just do it all. And that started that whole process. But even through that area there, we were not going to call it Category 5.
Okay.
So we were just, because we're just doing this for fun. We had no, like, if it took us 10 years to write all this music, so it did. It didn't matter. We're not trying to get crazy with it. And so as Albert's learning some of these songs and we're sending them back, Helmut Mueller from in Germany that contacted me. I've known him for a very, very long time. He was a long-time fan of our band, going back to our debut album. And he'd contacted me about wanting to release it in a vinyl format. And I says, oh, that'd be sure, absolutely. So, and he's released quite a few albums on vinyl from really, really amazing bands. And so I was all on board. We gave him all the materials, released the album. And it was during that process, you know, we have these 5 guys writing this music, and we're starting to get some more attention based upon our debut album beginning re-released on vinyl over in Germany. And we're like, you know, maybe we should just call it Category 5. And that was kind of like a, yeah, okay, well, maybe not. But there was no but that was the first time where we started talking about it. It was like, you know, it's 3 of the 5 original members. One guy's already been on 1 album, so it's kind of 4 out of 5. And this guy we've known since I've lived with him since I was 16 years old. I've known this guy forever.
Nice.
We've played the local circuit for many, many years, and he knows us as well as we know him. It's just family at this point. We're like, why not just call it Category 5? It still sounds like it, but
yeah,
why not go?
Was this all part of your master plan, Dan? Did you already?
Oh yeah, it was.
No, me and Curtis, just when we got together to start writing the riffs, it was just literally just build riffs. We were just storing away all these different riffs. Didn't really, you know, it wasn't until a little later that we started patching songs. But I mean, we have a huge library of riffs that we worked on in that period of time. So, you know,
it was like 2 years.
It's like 2 years.
Wow.
And I came in, so after that 2 years, they brought him in, and then a year later, I came in, and then I'd probably say almost 6 to 8 months later, he came in, had a full band. We're like 5 or 6 songs into new material, and that's about where we started having that actual conversation because of the vinyl re-release of our debut album. So it was that point that kind of pushed us in that direction, and the response. Then obviously, Metallic Blue around the same time was asking me about releasing that 5th album on CD because it was only ever done digitally. We couldn't afford to press it ourselves because we were having so many issues with trying to find a label partner. And so they finally came and says, hey, let's actually put it out for real on CD. So between the vinyl album, that 5th album being re-released, and the attention we we're getting from that, we thought, you know what? We're back.
Nice.
Whatever.
That's great. That is great. Yeah, that's really cool. So it sounds like the new album is going to be very riff driven.
Yes.
Not to say that previous albums haven't either, but that's cool. That's really exciting. And it sounds like this kind of all came together very organically, and which, you know, I think always makes for a better album. You know, that's really cool. That's exciting. Yeah. Do you have do you guys have a target date at this point for the new album?
We would like to see it come out this year, but I would say very, very early next year at the latest.
Okay, cool.
Very early, like first quarter next year. I'm sorry, that's business talk. It'd be like January, February, March-ish in that area is probably more likely, but if we could do it beforehand, we'll definitely make it an effort. I mean, that's why he's here in Utah right now doing his job. You know, we're back there just cracking on him like a son of a bitch. So
yeah, you should see the lesions on my rear right now. It's brutal.
Nice.
But yeah, we're almost there.
Yeah, that's great news. Do you have and I don't know if you're at liberty to say this at this point, do you have like a working title for the album? You know, do you have artwork you know, kind of already down that path?
We do. Yeah, we have a working title, but
Not
We're
going to
waiting on a few other things in the pipeline, and it's just so. But I will say this much because we won't say what the title is. But the idea was spawned by a fan, because Dan is a fan of the band, so he's not just a guy that we know. And he came in and we hired him off of off the street. He's known us for years, so it'd be kind of like if well, that's so esoteric. I was going to say it'd be like someone from FM joining Iron Maiden. Most people would be like, "What?
Oh yeah.
What? Why would that?" It's that kind of relationship because so everyone understands Dan's background is in more of the death metal, thrash metal genre. Because that's where the three of us here grew up in northern Utah, where that's a real hotbed, and that's where you live.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the death and thrash metal scene is really hard. It's big. It's huge. So it's kind of like the Oakland of Utah, basically, and that's what we grew up in. So we grew up in the speed metal and thrash metal genres. And he has bands, basically in that genre. But when I moved up to Salt Lake and brought this motherfucker up with me, we ended up doing the more progressive metal stuff. But we've always had this thrash background. It's always been apparent to us. So it's always been part of the genome of this band.
Yeah. There's definitely that element there.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Which I think makes it, more dynamic, which is I think what drew me to the band originally in the first place was, it was because I love progressive metal, but I liked the fact that it was hard hitting and, there was an aggressive bite to it, which I really enjoyed too.
We're not like a Dream Theater kind of progressive metal. We're more of like a mix of between like bands like Fate's Warning or maybe Realm, Watchtower, kind of in that area.
Yeah, definitely. So I know, Al, you're from out of state. You're from Chicago, correct?
That is correct.
How did you get involved originally with these jokers?
So that's an interesting story.
Yeah.
So how do a bunch of guys from Utah and a singer from Chicago get together in a band? Well, it all started in Atlanta. So
of course.
Yes. So
he was drunk.
So if you're familiar, Atlanta is where the Prague Power USA Festival takes place.
Right.
And I have been going literally every year since the very first one, which was actually near my hometown. Because Glenn had started it up in Illinois.
Oh, okay.
And then from the second one on, he had it in Atlanta. And Dustin had been attending the festival since that second one. And Curtis had come along for a number of them as well. And at one point, Katagory V performed at a kickoff show for Prague Power 4 in 2003. So that was my first time seeing them live. And I just absolutely loved their music once I saw them. I was like, these guys are super cool. So from there, they had appeared a couple of times in my area playing things like the Classic Metal Fest and the Power Fest.
Yes.
Yeah, Chicago Power Fest. So they had come around a couple of times, and so we would just kind of recognize each other and give hellos and be like, cool show, and so on and so forth. And they didn't know me as a singer then, but as time went on, there was one year at Prague Power, would have been 2006 actually.
The karaoke.
Yeah, there was they had like a little karaoke night.
Yeah.
And so I went up and did a bunch of songs because most people were kind of hesitant to go up there, and I'm a glutton for attention. So I just went up and did like one song after another. And so I'm going up there and doing stuff like Dockin', and I think I did a Dio tune. But hold on. So I'm doing those, and they're like, okay, cool. And then out of nowhere, no, it wasn't that year. That was the next year. Oh. So then I went up there and I rickrolled everybody. I ended up doing a Rick Astley tune and kind of making everyone go, "Arr." And but they remembered seeing me doing karaoke, and so they kept me in mind the following year when they were looking into getting a new vocalist. And so this was back in the MySpace days. And I actually had a MySpace account. It's the last time I've ever been on social media. So Dustin had reached out to me right before they were putting out Hymns of Dissension. Okay. And at the time, they had already parted ways with the original singer, Lynn Allers. And but they weren't really making that public yet because they were getting ready to promote this brand new album. But Dustin said to me, hey, we're going to be looking for a new singer. Would you be interested in trying out? And I said, absolutely. I love your music. So yeah, whenever you guys want me to try out, let me know how you want to do it. Wow. And they eventually sent me they basically sent me the stems from previous albums and said, sing over, if you could sing over these tracks so we can hear how you would sound on our existing material. And then they sent me 3 little snippets of songs that they were working on for an upcoming album. And they're like, we've got some lyrics written with some time markers for the tracks. Let's see what you can come up with for vocal melodies. So they gave me a deadline of, they were like, we need it in a month. So I was like, all right, I'm knocking this out in 2 weeks and mailing it out to them to make sure it gets there on time.
By the way, that's snail mail.
Yeah.
Today we would just send it over the email.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was very technologically bereft at the time too. So here I am, like rushing over to a buddy's place, just singing my butt off for like 4 straight days to knock out these tracks. And I got them over to them. And turns out I was like the one guy that they were trying out who managed to get everything done in time. So I think I just kind of won the role by default. But
there were other singers that we were talking to, and there were others that sent stuff into us, but he got it to us the fastest. It was the most professional sounding, and he truly sounded like when we were listening to it, it was like, like, it's hard to explain, but you could hear it and you're like, we were like really having we were having in our minds, like we wanted like a more Dio kind of singer, and we wanted to kind of go in this like more like aggressive direction in the vocal department with the music. And as soon as we heard his vocals over the old stuff, we were like, well, he can do the Lynn, like he can sing his material no problem. And then we got to the new stuff, and it was like, wow, yeah. There was no coaching involved. There was no like if we had to bring him in. It was like when we ended up flying him in eventually to actually sing for real in the studio, no coaching involved. It was just, well, what do here's the words, how do you feel it should go? And he found the melodies himself and carried them through really well. And if we had a suggestion, sometimes he'd go like this. He'd go, I think I could do one better. Let's go, da da da. And he'd go and he'd run back in and he'd slam the door closed, and we'd go, and we're like, me and Kirsten would be like, damn, all right, okay, well, you got the jig. You're good to go. Cool. But there was quite a few singers, some more known, other like more known singers that we talked to that were having interest in it was mostly conflict of schedules for most of them, because they were in other existing bands that were far more busy and less stupid than we were.
Well, you guys put out, this incredible album. So, and yeah, like you said, I think, the vocals just fit so perfectly with this album, with the music. It's like seamless. It's just, it feels very natural. It feels like it's such a good fit. I mean, it sounds like, a band that's been together for a very long time, which you obviously have been. Mm-hmm. But I mean, even, vocally as well. It sounds like you guys have been together for a long time and really sync up really well. And that's when I saw you guys live back in October, which is also amazing that you guys hadn't played for so long. It just sounded great. It was you guys really blew me away. And I loved all the bands I saw that night, but after you see a show, I don't know, you get home and you're all pumped up and excited. Yep. And you kind of like replay the show in your head. And I kept going back to your set. And just going, man, I'm gonna do this for you, because I'm not doing this to put you on the spot, but I don't think people ever get to hear it from our side, from the musician side. So let's do this for a second. Sure, yeah. Because
I remember you when you were at the show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I do. I remember you from the show. And from somebody like from our perspective, we literally look at ourselves as complete nobodies. Like we're just, dude, we put our pants on, we go to work, we all have day jobs, shit. And so I remember coming over to the booth, and the girls that were running our booth were in kind of mild panic mode because they were getting mobbed.
Hmm.
And I'm like, calm down, it's okay. And they're like, this person's telling me they need a big change and all this stuff. And I was trying to take care of the chaos. And as soon as I got them calmed down and at the merch booth and turned around, you would come right up to me and you're like, hey, that was the first time I've ever seen you guys. I didn't know you guys were from here and la la la. You said the look on your face. It was like it reminded me of like the first time I'd heard like Perfect Symmetry from Fate's Warning when I bought it and I listened to it and I was like gates had opened. Like you had the wild eyes, like the wide eyes, like. And so from my perspective, I was like, I think this guy really likes our band. I was like, dude, whatever you want, you got it. I'm gonna hook you up.
Nice. Yeah, I bought the vinyl, the first album, and I bought the CD. From I just showed. Yeah, I would have bought more, but I didn't. It was like my wife will kill me if I come. And I'd already purchased Vector stuff and True stuff, so I was like, all right, I gotta like. You come home with a big load of stuff. Like, how much did you spend? You don't want to know.
Well, you definitely got a deal on the vinyl. That is for sure.
Yeah.
Because if you look at what it is on Discogs, because just so anyone watching this, we have several copies still from the Helmet sent us from the record label for those vinyls on the first album, and we only have it at the live show, and we still have probably another good handful of them left. So if we ever do play live again, especially if it's a local show, that's where you're going to find it.
And don't say if when we play another live show. If
Really?
it's up to it's going to happen. When? Don't listen to this guy.
There you go. Right on. So I guess the only album or the CD that is available from Metallic Blue Records is Resurrect, right? Or is anything else available?
They actually have copies of our second album.
Okay.
The second album, we had purchased our licensing rights back from that record label, Metal Ages Records, and so they sent us all our physical copies. And I have those stored in like a cave, like a wine cave under my house where it's all wet and drippy, and I have hundreds and hundreds of these copies. And I would sell CDs of my collection, that if I had duplicates of, or I got a box set that was nicer and I just had the old jewel case, I would sell off. And anytime I sold them on eBay, so anybody watching this, which I highly doubt, if you ever got a CD and had our second album come to you, that was me, because I was trying to get the fuckers out of my house. I'm giving it to you for free because fuck, I don't want to. No one's gonna buy it. Here you go. So
if it's got a little mold on it, they'll know.
Yeah, because they've been in the dungeon,
in the storage, came from the box. Yeah.
And so I still had quite a few of those left. And basically, when anyone who pre-ordered the album, I hope I got this right, but I believe anyone who pre-ordered the album, they could have a chance to get a copy of that for a very cheap price, like another $5 basically, or something like that.
Yeah.
So we turned those over to the record label to kind of do as an add-on to entice anybody who didn't own the album. You could get the new one and the second one, because the second one, believe it or not, is I created it myself as like a high demand situation and scarcity, because let's face it, the album was not one of our more popular albums due to it being such a shocking change in style, drastically from the first to the second. And I was retired. I didn't really care. And trust me, I know other musicians who've been in this position where you have it, but you have your life to live. You got kids to raise, and it's just, you don't care. Yeah. So I would just dump them, and there's not a lot of those on the market anymore. I usually will sometimes check on eBay just to see if anybody's putting our stuff on eBay, if a copy of our second album pops up, and I believe right now there's probably one. And it's probably in the $15 range, which is actually for a fresh copy that's sealed, perfectly fair.
Yeah.
Seeing it go up well above 20. Well above 20 sometimes.
Nice. That's great. Cool. Very cool. And and for those watching, there will be links in the description below, where you can definitely check out Katagory V, obviously, and also purchase purchase, especially the most recent album, the remaster or the re-released album from Metallic Blue Records. So I'll have a link for people to check that out. And as you mentioned, yeah, right now I think that deal's still going where they can get your second album for free, basically.
Yeah, it is. It's on the Metallic Blue website.
Yeah,
so
nice.
just look up Metallic Blue and on over, and it's right there.
Very cool. Very cool. So let's switch gears a little bit and maybe take a ride in the Wayback Machine.
Oh boy, I love those.
And let's start with Matt on this, and we'll do kind of a round robin, we'll go around the room. So I'm really curious about kind of the start for you guys. I'm always fascinated by, I'm not a musician myself, and I'm always fascinated by, and I'm addicted to music. I love music. And always fascinated to find out how people got started in music, especially professionals. Like, where did this start? How did this begin for you? Was it, did you come from a musical family? What was the path?
Oh, you're talking to me?
I'm gonna go potty.
I was 11 and playing soccer and, normal boy things. And my dad wanted me to try drums, one lesson.
Oh, wow.
And I said, not, I guess. And I took that one lesson. That's all it took.
Wow. Just kind of just addicted to it.
It sticks in my hand and punishing something in front of me was awesome.
Nice. I like it. Were there, and I'm sure there were, are there specific drummers that really influenced, because you have a very distinct style, and very interesting patterns. Again, I'm not a musician, so this is, coming from a novice, but just listening to your drum work, it's intricate, but it also has this real natural feel to it. So I was curious that kind of who are your influences? Who do you listen to?
Nigel Glockler from Saxon.
Ah, nice.
I learned how to play metal drums, Crusader, every day for 2 years. So Nigel is at the top. I'd say, hey, Neil Peart or Steve Christie, not Steve Christie, Richard Christie.
Yeah, Richard Christie.
Richard Christie, definitely one of the best.
Nice. Very cool. Very cool. And how about you, Dan? Dan, I know I actually asked you this question before when I interviewed.
Let's say it again, anyways.
Yeah, when I interviewed you with Davidian for Davidian.
Yeah, by the way, that's his other band. So everyone knows.
Yeah, great thrash death band. If you're not familiar with Killer Band. What were your startings, Dan?
Started guitar super young. Just as the thing to keep me occupied, I guess. And then your older brother shows you Black Sabbath and it kind of goes downhill from there. So as far as once I got into jamming, it's all the typical guys. It's Gary Holt, Jeff Loomis, I got playing into bands fairly early, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Davidian's been going strong forever now. So still going, still writing new material.
Nice.
So
yeah, you guys owe us a new album. we the fans.
It's coming.
Nice. Yeah, I'm excited. I've heard a little bit. So I can't wait. That'll be cool. I need to see you guys again live. Great. You guys put on a great show. How about you, Al? What was your start in the music scene?
It's kind of interesting. So, my parents are very young, for a guy my age. And so, my dad was listening to all that heavy stuff in the 80s, like his favorite bands were Dokken and Whitesnake and Dio and Maiden. And so here I am as a 3-year-old, just traipsing around our apartment while my dad's cranking Tooth and Nail. You know, while most other dads for kids my age were probably listening to, you know, Horse with No Name by America, you know.
Right.
So I got to hear all of this heavier but melodic music, and that's what really intrigued me. And as I got a little bit older, into my, say, tens to teens, that's when I started to really get interested in learning about bands. And so I kind of latched on to a lot of those 80s bands that my dad was into, but also discovering some of that stuff that came into play in the early 90s, like Firehouse and Nelson and all the bands that Matt hates.
Look at he's rolling his eyes back
Yeah.
here.
But I really love that sense of melody along with, you know, at least some sort of edge. And then came 1992 when, on a whim, my mom took a recommendation of a cassette from a guy at a music store where we had just moved into town, and it was this little band out of New York called Dream Theater, and it was an album called Images and Words, and my dad threw it on, not having any idea what it was going to be like, but my mom had talked to the guy at the store, like telling him what he's into. And he's like, oh, he's going to love this. So he throws it on and he's floored. I'm floored, you know? So here I am, 11 years old. And right at that moment, I was like, okay, I know exactly what I want to do. I want to sing like the guy on this album, and I want to find a band like this. And I was in pursuit of trying to get a band like that together for years.
Wow.
But the only thing I could get where I was growing up was getting into this high school band with a bunch of buddies of mine who were all listening to anything but melodic metal. They were first into ska and punk, and then they got into all of what I call bounce metal, you know, like Korn and Coal Chamber and all that stuff. And I was like, I was so desperate to be in a band that I was like, okay, I guess I'll learn this stuff. So I just blew my voice out every night trying to rehearse or do shows with them, until finally I was like, no, I want to do what I want to do. And it took another probably 6 years before I really got into my first serious original band. And that was just a short-lived power metal band called Bav Morta, just comprised of guys that I met through working at the same music store where Images and Words was recommended to my mom to give to my dad.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it all kind of comes full circle.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah, that's cool. Like, full circle. That's really interesting. Wow, that's wild. That's cool. I remember specifically when that album came out as well. I'm a little bit older than you. So yeah, early 90s or 92. Yeah, it was 92, right? So yeah, I worked at a bookstore, and there was this woman that worked there too that I had a little crush on. And we went out after, a bunch of us went out after work one night and got beers. And then and I was on my bike. So she gave me a ride home, and she was the one, she said, hey, have you heard, because she knew I was into metal, and she said, hey, have you heard this band Dream Theater? I'm like, no, I don't, what is that? So she's like, hey, is it cool if I come in? I'm like, hell yeah, it's cool if you come in. So nothing really happened except we listened to that album, and I'm like, holy shit, it changed my life. Yeah, so yeah, that's cool. Sorry, this is not about me, this is about you guys, but I just had to throw this in real quick. But yeah, that was when you brought that up, I'm like, wow, that's really cool. But yeah, it also freaks me out that you were 11 and I was, 22.
Well, I know the thing is, I know that I'm an anomaly when it comes to that, you know, because so many kids my age I was such an outcast in high school. I had a mullet. I was walking around with a Joe Satriani shirt, and nice. Everybody else I knew was like, why don't you listen to like the Smashing Pumpkins and stuff? And I'm like, because they suck. You know? They're like, who is this weirdo?
Yep.
You know,
Nice.
That's me.
That's why he fits so well in this band, because we were all like that.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, like you were saying before, we're all kind of, metal nerds.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just now wear it on our sleeve like we don't give a shit.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a badge of honor, right? That's cool. That's really cool. I love that. And last but not least, Dustin, what kind of how did you get started in all of this?
My dad actually was a radio DJ when I was growing up. And kind of a side note,
Wait, sorry, I don't mean is your dad when you is your
no,
dad not
he's not skinny.
okay?
So just all right, because you're obviously from Utah, so you know.
Yeah.
No, my dad was Jordan Mitchell. He worked the 10 to 6 shift.
I
And then
remember
Skinny
him.
was right after him. So
I remember
people that
Jordan.
work graveyard knew who my dad was.
I remember him.
Yeah,
Yep.
but KCPX. Yep,
Yeah.
KCPX.
Cool.
So I grew up with he worked there. He worked at a radio station called KLO, and then we moved up to Roy while he was working at KLO, and ended up working at another radio station called KJQ, which was more like 80s top 40.
Yeah.
And he would do like car remotes and parades and dances. You know, I grew up running his lights at like 6, 7 years old. You know,
Well,
so and it's funny because I going like not to sidetrack, but just kind of like oh by the way, I had met Mike Portnoy in Fremont, California when Enchant was opening for Fates Warning, and Fates Warning wasn't coming to Utah, so me and my wife at that time drove out to see Fates Warning, and we had just gotten into this band Enchant who was opening for them, and they were from the area, and we ended up meeting them. But Mike Portnoy ended up arriving there for reasons I cannot remember, but he was there, and he was over at the pool table with all the Enchant guys, and I walked up to go talk to the Enchant guys, and I ended up talking to him, and we had this nice short conversation, and I told him about how I was getting, you always tell, I was like, images and words,
yeah.
I says I grew up because I was talking about some of the songs and how I grew up with my dad being a DJ. He goes, "Oh, my dad was a DJ too."
Oh, cool.
I was like, "Oh, sweet, that's cool." So he goes, "That's why I'm into music, because my dad was a radio DJ as well." I was like, "Oh, wow, that's wild." So that's how I got into it, because my dad was doing all those radio gigs and I was obsessed with it. Growing up, I would have a cassette that he would have his 45s. You're old enough to know what that is.
Oh, I've got a stack.
Most people are not. Yeah, look behind me. And he'd have these 45s, and I would take the singles and record them on and make my own mixed cassettes.
Oh yeah, nice.
And I would take a boombox with batteries, and me and my friends in the neighborhood, we'd listen to all these. We could listen to whatever song we wanted on demand without having to turn on the radio.
Yeah.
And so that's what started me is at some point I was like, I actually want to make the music on the radio, not just listen to it. So I started getting really interested into it, and I ended up going through my dad's promo albums that he would give away to teenagers at high school dances. And I ended up running across this. And at the time, I think I had Queen album and a Robert Palmer album, and I was jamming on those things. And I would always take these promo albums and play them on his turntable and check them out and be like, no, put it back, try another one. That's not too bad, set it aside. I got to this album from a band called Bonfire, and the album was called Fireworks. And I put it on, and I just heard this opening riff, and I was like, holy shit, these guys mean business. I'm like 12, 13 years old probably. And I ended up recording that to a cassette, flipping the album over and then recording it on the other side. And I would have it on my bike on a cassette, and I'd listen to it constantly all the time.
Nice.
And I was like, this is the kind of music I want to play. I want to learn how to play guitar and bass like this. I want to do that. I just took off from there. I originally started out wanting to be a bass player because I was really into like Steve Harris and
cool.
Squire and Geddy Lee. At 14 years old, I was hearing these things already. I remember when like I said, I heard Perfect Symmetry, and I was like, the syncopations with the bass guitar with those bass drums were like, it was magic. Hearing Joe DiBiase syncing up and playing in the pocket with Mark was amazing to me. And I would hear that like with Iron Maiden, how Steve Harris is playing, with his own melodic lines, or Chris Squire or Geddy Lee. And I wanted to do that. But when I got a bass and I didn't know how to play it. I was like, what do I do with this thing? I don't know what to do with this. So I ended up taking guitar lessons to try and understand, how to play a stringed instrument. And during that process, I ended up becoming obsessed with being a guitar hero. I was doing the whole Satriani thing and sweep picking and trying to do everything. I was in his band at the time for Davidian. It wasn't Davidian called that at the time, but I was in his band for a few minutes, and we'd written a song that was kind of like something that would have been off Death Symbolic album. And Matt was in the band at the time too. And that was like, I was playing guitar because I just wanted to be able to write songs. I actually really wanted to play bass. That was my true thing. And I ended up giving my bass guitar to a guy that was a bassist in his band. And that went through several people, and including a girl that we that was playing in our band that called Vivid Image. I pulled her in and gave her the bass and taught her a few things, and she just picked it up like wildfire. If I was like, I want you, because I wanted a bass player that could play bass, not follow the guitars, play an actual bass like an orchestrated instrument.
Yeah.
And she picked it up right away. So I was like, all right, I'm going to stick to guitar. But when we met Curtis, me and Matt had met Curtis, and Kim was involved with this. That was the bass player at the time. She just was not hitting the vibe with it. She wasn't really feeling it. She decided to ditch. And Curtis, and we had another guy there named Ryan, who's a guitarist. We were thinking of doing this Leather Wolf kind of thing with 3 guitars, or Iron Maiden. And so when she ditched, I was like, these 2 guitar players know exactly the kind of music I want to play. So I'm jumping on bass. I'm finally going to get to do it. I'm going to be me and get to finally play bass. So I went out and bought a bass and came in and says, all right, guys, you got a bass player.
Nice. Nice.
And it's been that way ever since.
Very cool. That's cool. I love that. That was great. I did want to ask, and I should have asked this earlier when we were talking about the current album you're recording, and I meant to, it kind of was in the back of my brain. So it's, as we mentioned, it's been a while since, the 2015, since the last album. So, and this is a very generalized question, I realize that, but, what does this album sound like? Does it sound, is it anything like that? I mean, it's been a long time, so I'm kind of curious. I mean, you probably all have had, lots of life changes and different influences and things, but and also Dan is a new member. What does this album sound like to you? What do you guys feel like it sounds like?
Well, Dan and the band, it's definitely changed the dynamics, but that's been that way every time we've added a guitarist.
Okay.
That's like that for a long time. That was like every album was like, seemed like it was a different guitarist. I think Mark before Dan was like the longest tenured guy. But every time we brought in another guitarist, we operate in a fairly democratic style. Everyone's ideas are accepted. So if another guitarist comes in, his style is going to, he's going to have his ideas, and they're going to blend in with the body of the music, which is, to me, the way it should be, because that it creates its own character and its own flavors. So Dan coming into the band, if we kind of rewind the tape, is that we come from the hotbed of death and thrash in the upper northern side of the state. So that influence is very much more present in the new material. For me, my side of it is it feels like a proper Category 5 album with a lot more teeth, and we're wearing our influences on our sleeve a lot more on this. You're going to hear a lot of variation. If you're anyone that's familiar with our style, which is why we probably are not very popular, is we're not like, if you want to hear Queensryche, we do have that in there, but it's not going to be exactly like that every song. Right. We might have a song that's probably leaning more towards like a band like Realm, or another song that leans more towards a band like Candlemass. It's going to be, it has ebbs and flows and peaks and valleys in our sounds. And if you're a fan of many styles of metal, we're your baby, boy. We're your huckleberry.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how this album sounds, is now we have a lot more of a higher thrash influence, speed metal influence in there, coming from Dan, because he's contributed to a large majority of the songwriting in this process.
Cool. As far as lyrics go.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, the drummer has written songs too.
Oh, nice.
I know it's not usually allowed. We tease him. We call him Charlie Badante, but he is actually, him and Dan both have brought more like the more speed metal and thrash metal, that kind of sound from like Enigma and Metal Blade, Roadrunner bands from like 85 to 88, 89.
Very cool.
That kind of style is kind of more prevalent on what we're doing right now.
Oh, that's exciting. I can't wait to hear it. That
Yeah.
sounds awesome. Yeah, I was gonna ask. So I think you mentioned before with Resurrect, the lyrics had already been pretty much written, correct?
Yes.
So Al, you came up with the melodies for this new album. Is that are you writing lyrics, Al, or is this?
Yeah, so it's interesting how the lyrics came about for this one. Actually, with the previous album, Dustin did write the majority of the lyrics.
Not all of them, but
yeah, I ended up contributing to 3 of the songs that made the album proper, and then if you count the bonus tracks, one of those was mine too.
yes.
Oh, okay.
But all the vocal melodies were written by me.
Yeah.
So he'd give me the lyrics with like time markers to say, okay, this is where I want to fit these words, and I would fit, I would sort of Tetris them in, melody wise. This time around, actually Dan was writing a lot of the lyrics to start, and so I would take what Dan had written, and I would I would try to keep as close to those lyrics as possible while making sure that there was still enough of a sense of melody to where, okay, if I could take out these words, but it still has the meaning that he's looking for instance,
Nice.
then we've got that going. And as things progressed, I'd say once we got about halfway through demoing songs, I decided, you know what, I need to start taking a stab at this and coming up with some lyrics of my own. And so I started writing more of my own, or taking ideas from Dan or Curtis, depending on the song, and they would have like a few lines or like an overall idea for a song, how they wanted it to, like the theme, if you will, to the lyrics. And I would go, okay, I've got something to work with here. Let me just go to town on it. And so I'd say maybe half the lyrics are mine, if not more.
So far, yeah.
Yeah, but there's quite a bit of lyrical contribution from Dan as well,
Cool.
and a bit from Curtis.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, cool. Is there any sort of like a thematic thread, not necessarily a concept, but is Dan, is there any sort of kind of thread concept, going on? Any motif with lyrically that's happening?
No, each song I think is individual to itself.
Cool.
So, I mean, I'll just come up with a theme that I want to write about, and that's where we go. In the lyrics, I feel go right along with the music too. It's song 1 is not going to sound like song number 2.
Cool.
By any means. And then the whole record is going to play out like that. It's all over the place. It's pretty cool.
Nice.
It's a metal nerd's nightmare or dream, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
And it's not like we're like going in and we're like doing like this whole like thing, like each song is going to sound like this is AC/DC, this one's Judas Priest,
Right.
It's just, we're making sure as the songwriting process when we're creating the music for the album, that because all of us are album fans, we've all listened to these, grew up with a lot of bands, and we'd listen to them, and we understand the art of the album itself from beginning to end, and the way you absorb that. And so we wanted to make sure that we're doing it from that fan perspective, because we're fans too. And we wanted to make sure this album has that peaks and valleys and those kind of like stylistic changes, where maybe this song's more melodic and has kind of a more, catchy, hooky kind of Dio, Holy Diver kind of vocal thing, where the other songs can be more aggressive and straightforward and beat you about the brains. We just want to make sure that there's a lot of contrast in the whole process.
Nice. Cool. So yeah, it sounds almost like, maybe I'm wrong here, but it sounds like maybe sequencing has already started being mapped out.
Actually, we really haven't discussed the sequencing yet, have we?
No.
Yeah, we really haven't.
We're right at the very moment now. It's not like it's any kind of secret. We're at the very tail end of this moment of recording the final vocals for the album. All the instrumentation is for the most part complete. We might add some other instrumentation in post, depending, like a little bit of background keys to kind of thicken something up. There's going to be some post work, I'm sure. But, for the most part, that's why Albert's here, is he's coming in to finalize his vocal performance and get it on tape.
Yeah, I'm technically on my very last tune, which is going to be an interesting one, a bit of a surprise for fans old and new.
Yep.
So that's my hint.
Yeah.
Polka. It's polka.
We'll reveal more as time goes on.
Yes.
You're doing a polka song.
Yes.
It'll
Yeah,
be like a Weird Al
I'm-
medley.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear this. I cannot wait to hear this. This is going to be great. I'm super excited. I did want to ask, and maybe this is a dumb question. Maybe I'm reading into things too much. But I was curious about, and I'm curious if this will continue with this album too, if I'm right. So the woman on the album cover
Mhm.
is the same woman on all the album, apart from the first album, correct?
That's correct.
Okay,
Yeah,
good. That's what I thought. I was pretty sure I was right, and then I started second, like maybe they're gonna be like, "What are you talking about?"
No, yeah,
Yep, you got it.
Yeah, you're the first. You're the, at least for me, you're the first person that is recognized a theme with
Okay.
our.
So what's the story there? What is there a story? Is there a like?
Yeah,
is
she's born
this-
of water.
Does this
Born of
character?
water.
Okay, yeah. Does this character have a name? Is
Yes, the character does have a name, so now everyone can know because we inadvertently created a mascot for ourselves, and we just
Oh.
felt that like a more strong female antagonist kind of character would kind of fit kind of the feel of what we do. And so the first album obviously is a woman coming out of water, and it's like she's taking shape, and that was just kind of a wild, almost stoner idea we came up with because we're all 20-year-old idiots, you know. Hey, wouldn't it be cool if you know? So when we got to the second album, we had this. I don't even remember how we kind of came up with the concept. To be honest, I really don't. I'd have to. That's so far back. But I remember it was one that me and the guitarist Curtis had come up with, and we decided to seek out some artists, and we ended up coming across a guy that I'd been talking with friends with because we were both fans of melodic hard rock. Is this artist named Rainer Kallwitz from Germany? He's done artwork for a lot. I mean, a ton of fantastic, like more melodic rock bands from like bands that would be on like Frontiers or going back to the AOR bands like MTM Records. And we decided to pull him in. He did like a Jorn Lund album.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So he did like Millennial, the band Millennium that Jorn Lund would sing on one album.
Yeah, that's
He did a couple of those albums. So we brought him on the second album, and we gave him the concept, and he says, "Sure, okay." He did a rough drawing and sent it to us. We thumbs upped it, and when we got the painting, we're like, "Oh, that's cool. Well, how did you come up with this idea?" And he says, "I just used I don't know if it's like a cousin or a niece. It was a family member, and just it's her." And he just drew her and then painted how she would look, and her name was Britta. So we're like, oh, okay, so the character has a name. So when we did the third album, which he also did the artwork for, we said, put Britta in. Let's get Britta, carry her on.
Isn't that a water dispenser, Britta?
Yes,
It is.
And so we decided when we did the fourth album, Matthias had done that one. The guy that Evergrey, he works with Evergrey. He did our fourth album cover. And I gave it, we gave him a concept, and we said just put a girl in there that has kind of that same kind of concept, and he did. Boom. So when we got the fifth album, the guys at Metallic Blue were like, "Would you, you want to do some new artwork?" Because the old artwork, it was created by the drummer that performed on that album.
Yeah, the silhouette, right? Of the
Yeah, so that was just kind of put on there just so we could, when we did the digital release, at least it had an identity.
Yeah.
And he did a fantastic job.
Yeah, it's a great cover.
Really, it's quite good. So, but the record label's like, let's get one that like fits the theme. Like, let's bring Britta back. Let's bring the mascot back. Put Britta back into her heroine, her whole heroine role, and let's just go forward with it. And so we did. And so that was their idea, was like to bring her back, and I agreed. So we did the new album artwork in that concept to follow through. So when you look at it, like when you see it online and you have all the album covers, you literally see it. And there's an Easter egg because we are currently working for an artist for this new album right now. We've commissioned him, and he's working on the artwork currently. And the concept is going to have a lot of Easter eggs.
Oh, cool.
For sure. When it comes out, and everyone will probably, the fans that if like you have noticed it, will see the Easter eggs for sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh.
Not to mention the artist himself is pretty well known, and we're all like itching to see what he's what he's going to be sending us. So
yeah, he's more well known for doing artwork for bands that are not our style.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, all right, cool. You're not going to tell me his name yet. Are
No,
you?
not yet.
Not quite yet.
I knew
Not
it.
yet,
I knew it.
but that's all that we could say is he's not a guy that is normally known to do like power and progressive metal bands. It's
Okay.
a very opposite genre for sure.
Interesting. Oh, I'm excited. Oh, this is very exciting. Whoa, this is cool. Oh, this is awesome. I can't wait. I can't wait.
Dan's
So-
over there going,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
So-
his
"Can't
idea.
wait."
Yeah.
The artwork was his idea,
Yeah.
as
Oh,
was
very
the
cool.
album title.
Yes,
Which, you know, once
yeah.
we reveal it, you know, we can give all credit to this
Dan
man.
for that one.
Very cool. Yeah, damn.
And the
All
quick
right.
answer is Britta is on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Britta is on it.
All right. Very
Britta
cool.
returns.
Yeah, that's exciting. Oh, I love that. That's great. Well, gentlemen, this has been an absolute pleasure talking with you, and really an honor too. This is, you know, I adore your music. I think you guys just kill it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
just and for those of you watching, if you don't have it, go get this right now. You can get it from Metallic Blue Records. I'll have a link, and I think is it also available on your Bandcamp page, or
It should
I
be
guess
now.
okay,
It is now.
yeah.
On
I know
the
your
band.
previous albums are on there.
Yeah, I actually got it uploaded on there not too long ago, so it is available through the band directly as well as the record label and Amazon or who are blessed to buy their music at Target. I don't know
Yeah.
why, but it's there.
iTunes, yeah, your guys are on
iTunes, yeah,
iTunes.
all big.
Yeah, so yeah, anywhere where fine music is sold, you will find Category 5. If you have not heard Category 5, get to know them right away. This band kills. They rock. One of the best bands that's come out of Utah ever in the West, really, and just a phenomenal band. I love this band. Yeah, check them out. As I said, you know, there'll be, you know, links in the description below. You can check them out. Yeah, gentlemen, thank you so much. Super excited for the new album to come out. Yeah, have a great evening, and
You too. Thank you.
hopefully
Thanks.
Thank you.
we'll talk again soon.
All right, thanks.
Absolutely.
We'll see you.